Tony and Amato.
Okie doke.
So good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by the Canadian Professional Sales Association and our accredited partner, JTX. My name is Rupalyn, and I will be moderating this session. Today's webinar will cover leading your team to peak performance, and hosting today are Tony Martino and Amato De Trevita, co-founders and co-presidents of JTX. Tony co-founded JTX following a long and successful career at Xerox Canada. Tony's results-focused insights are derived from over 30 years in senior leadership roles across multiple disciplines, including business operations, human resources, finance, marketing, customer relationship management, outsourced services, supply chain, business transformation, and sustainability. Amato is a seasoned executive with extensive leadership experience, a proven track record of success, and a passion for the entrepreneurial spirit. Amato co-founded JTX in 2010 after retiring from a successful 28 career with Xerox, where he held several senior positions, including Vice President of Sales Operations, Vice President of Customer Relations, and Vice President and GM of New England Operations at Xerox Corp. JTX is a business advisory firm focused on improving sales effectiveness to deliver extraordinary results for sales companies of all sizes and a variety of sectors. Now, just a few housekeeping rules for today. Please note that all of today's attendees have been placed on mute for the duration of the session, and that you can ask questions or make comments using the question function in your GoToWebinar dashboard. They're just going to be addressed at 2 points in the session today, at the midway mark and at the end in the Q&A session. The webinar will be recorded and will be sent to attendees soon after. Now, without further ado, I will hand it over to Tony and Amato to start.
Thanks, Rupalyn. Thanks very much. So I'm Tony Martino, and my cohort Amato is on the line as well, as Rupalyn said, and he'll be taking over the second half of this discussion today. So today we're going to be talking about understanding the changes in sales. Maybe the word evolution is a better one to use, but these changes that have occurred as a result of the COVID pandemic. It's clear that COVID prevented us from selling in the more traditional or conventional accepted ways. 80% of sales took place with live face-to-face interactions between the seller and buyer. Inside sales and remote selling were growing in importance, but still not as significant. As for managing sales professionals, the sales management process also followed, a fairly traditional model. But once COVID happened, and live interactions with customers stopped dead, selling had to be virtual. By phone, which many had some comfort doing, more significantly, what I'll call digital selling is what came into play, using tools like Zoom, Teams, and other virtual technologies. So the thing is, it wasn't really clear how long it would be before we could go back to live meetings and interactions. But as time went on, it did become clear that the sales processes had to change. How do you work with clients in a totally digital world? How do you prospect? Some sales professionals were able to embrace the changed world, some had some difficulty. Same with the sales management process. It had to evolve as well. How do you manage performance? How do you coach? How do you develop people in a virtual world? Same techniques and approaches would not work necessarily. And again, some sales managers were able to embrace the changed world. Some had some difficulty. What we're going to do today is talk about how selling has evolved from pre-pandemic days to what we see now as a hybrid virtual live world selling model, and suggest some ideas for leading your team to peak performance in today's world. Let's start with some research done by McKinsey & Company. And it looked at how the B2B selling and buying world changed. So the COVID-19 pandemic forced B2B buyers and sellers to go digital in a massive way. What started out as really a crisis response has now become the next normal, with big implications for how buyers and sellers will do business in the future. More than 3/4 of buyers and sellers say that they now prefer digital self-serve and remote human engagement over face-to-face interactions, a sentiment that has intensified even after the lockdowns have ended or reduced significantly. So net, both B2B buyers and sellers are saying that they prefer a new digital reality. So when you look at the effectiveness of a digital sales model, far from being a local phenomenon, the shift to digital and remote engagement has been embraced by decision makers in all countries surveyed worldwide. B2B sales leaders have moved from being forced to adopt digital in reaction to the widespread shutdowns in the early stages of COVID-19 to a growing conviction that digital is now the way to go. And as you can see here, 75% of respondents to the survey said that the digital model is as effective or more effective than the old face-to-face model. Also important to look at is that in digital sales has become more comfortable for buyers as well, and more buyers are considering making new large purchases and reorders online. The prevailing wisdom used to be that e-commerce was mainly for smaller ticket items and fast-moving parts. Not so anymore. Notably, 70% of B2B decision makers say they're open to making new, fully self-serve or remote purchases in excess of $50,000. And 27% say that they would spend more than $500,000. So that's a pretty significant shift in where the market has been operating. The next thing we look at is what we call the two breakout stars in this new digital world, which is video and online chat. With the massive shift to digital resulting from COVID-19, video and live chat have emerged as the predominant channels for interacting and closing sales with B2B customers. While in-person meetings and related sales activities have come down significantly, as you can see there, a drop of over 50%. The amount of revenue generated from video-related interactions has jumped by 69% since April 2020. And together, e-commerce and video conferencing now account for 31% of all B2B revenue, more than any other channel. Customers also made it clear that given a choice, they prefer video to phone in their interactions with sellers. So what are we dealing with here? Is this a flavor of the month or is it a new reality? Well, again, according to survey respondents, these pandemic-induced patterns are likely to become permanent. Close to 9 out of 10 decision makers say that the new commercial and go-to-market sales practices will be sustained going forward. So what are you looking at then? Well, with all the research that we've seen, with all the interactions we've had with our own customers and prospects, and I'm sure the interactions that you've had with your clients and prospects, it's clear that we've evolved to a new hybrid selling model, mostly because we've evolved to a new hybrid buying model. And so you're going to see a mix of that live face-to-face and virtual engagement as we move forward. So let's talk about the customer for a second. Sales has to be customer-centric. It's all about reaching and servicing your customers. That's what drives sales success. So as you can appreciate, we interact with a lot of companies in the work we do. And some of the things we find is that while many of our clients and prospects are saying that they believe customers number one, in many companies, what we find is that it's more about the company and the rep. And customer number one tends to be more words than the actions demonstrate. So for what we see here then is a suggestion that an opportunity exists. An opportunity, if you're one of those types of companies that thinks more about yourself as an organization and your people than you do the customer, opportunity to change your thinking and focus more on what's important for the customer, which of course is the key thing that's going to make you successful. So what does all this mean for you? Well, we have a couple of options here. One is you can ignore this change that's happening, and many people will, for a number of reasons. One, things are opening up again, and they feel comfortable that things are reverting back to the way it used to be. be great to get back to normal. So I'm seeing my customers live. I'm glad this whole pandemic thing's over. I didn't like that Zoom world. It wasn't for me. I can finally start prospecting the right way. And if I have to do a Zoom call with a client, I will, but I don't like it. So that's certainly one scenario. The other side of this is that you can embrace some of the changes that are happening and acknowledge and recognize that things have changed a lot, and recognize that you're going to have to adapt to a new way of selling to be really successful. This is a new reality. Also recognize that I'm sure everyone has here on this call learned a lot in the last 2 years of what it's like to operate in this pandemic environment. But even acknowledging that, there still is more to learn, and there still is an opportunity to elevate your skills and sales processes to operate in a true combination virtual and live world. So again, thinking about what it means to embrace this new reality. So I think one of the things that's important to do is to understand that the evolution isn't done yet. Things are going to continue to change. And for any sales professional and sales manager, it's important to be flexible and to be able to adapt. The other thing that's really key is that you have to really know and understand yourself. Know where your gaps are in working in this hybrid sales model. How can you be more effective? How can you be more efficient? And what changes do you need to make in your sales process to be successful? So, can you or do you want to work in the sales model? Well, the new hybrid model is one where you have to be equally comfortable working in both a face-to-face selling environment and what we call remote interaction selling environment. Some customers will want to continue 100% face-to-face. Some will want to work 100% virtual. The reality is, in many cases, you'll see a combination of these two extremes happening, with some face-to-face and some remote interactions with the same customer. If you agree that remote selling will be part of your selling process, make sure you have the right tools at your disposal. You have to be 100% professional on both sides of the model. So here's some tips and things you might want to think about. So you may have thought that making do was okay as we work through the pandemic, but now that remote selling is a more permanent selling process, make sure you have excellent tools. So things to look for: a good high quality HD camera is key, not the one that's in your computer, because both the placement of that camera and the quality of the camera could be a problem. For example, I use a Dell computer. For me, the camera is at the bottom of my screen. And when I'm trying to use that camera, the camera looks right up my nose, which is really, not professional. So get that good quality camera that you position wherever it makes the most sense for you. The other thing to think about is get a high quality microphone. You don't want to sound like a duck when you're speaking with your prospects and your clients. You want to sound like you're right next to them, and when you're speaking with your client. Very important. Good lighting is also important. Make sure you have that, because I don't know if you've been in meetings yourselves or virtual meetings where it's either a very dark background or almost a washed out background because it's so bright. Again, that's not the image that you want to portray to your clients and your prospects. You want to be 100% professional, and you want them to feel like you're there right next to them. So use a relevant background. Now, this is our background at JTX. Because of technical reasons, we weren't able to put it up today. However, this is what we use in all our interactions with prospects and clients. And, easy to do. You have it behind you. Really important, because I don't know, again, if you've been in meetings with people, like, they're in their kitchen, coffee pots and coffee cups behind them, or they're in their bedroom, got a bed behind them, or, whatever, that just doesn't convey that professional image. So get that background. Again, easy to create, and just have it show when you're meeting with your clients and prospects. And I guess the last thing that's really important in terms of tools, make sure that you have the highest end possible internet that you can get your hands on. I know this varies by region and area, but really important that you want to have enough bandwidth to be able to both speak and present to your clients. And we've all seen situations where somebody's presenting and it's choppy or they cut out. You get that message that says internet unstable. Like, you really don't want that. You really have to have that really high quality, high level internet available for you as well. So just give you some things you might want to keep in mind. And if you're in sales management or a sales leader, some of the things that you can coach your people on making sure they have as well. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've given you the foundation for what's really driving the new hybrid selling model. Talked about the importance of embracing the change to better position yourself to interact with your customers the way that they want to buy. And we've given you some ideas about positioning yourself for peak performance. Now we're going to flip over and look at your sales teams and how you can lead them to peak performance. The actions, the activities that can further enable sales success. Now, for the people on the call, these may seem to apply mostly to sales leaders and managers, but if you're a rep, pay attention as well, because you'll want to know and understand what your sales management is looking for in the work that you're doing. So I'm going to flip it over to Amado now, who's going to go through a discussion on more specifically the sales leadership side. Amado?
Thank you, Tony. Rupalin, did you want to take any questions at this point?
Oh, yes.
We're about halfway through.
We do have one question actually here from Tony, what you were referring to at the very beginning. So do you think in-person trade shows are still effective? Do you think that attendance of these shows will drop?
Well, shows themselves, I'm not. I think we've seen these opening up, especially in the U.S. more than Canada, but I think we expect these to open up in Canada as well. They're getting great participation, but doing these virtual events as well, you're getting to a pretty broad audience, because people don't have to travel and spend both money and time, and they can get pretty much the same type of benefit from seeing some of the things that are being presented. But again, it's like I was saying, that's going to be a hybrid situation as well. There's some are going to continue to be live in person. Maybe they're more effective that way, and some are going to move to this more virtual model. So I think we're going to see a hybrid type of approach in those types of events and conferences as well.
Thank you, Tony. And then you had touched on kind of the hybrid element of this new kind of virtual environment. How do you figure is the best time to do virtual versus in person these days?
I think it really does depend on what your customers feel comfortable with. And again, what we've seen is that more and more of certainly our clients and the clients that our clients work with are much more comfortable in that virtual environment. Again, it's saving time, it's saving travel, it's saving money and expenses doing so. And it's more efficient because you can get more done. You can have more meetings at both ends, both the buyer and the client. So again, if the client's comfortable with it, I think that's the way to go. Again, think of what the client wants.
And just to build on that, the part about asking the customer what they prefer as part of sales, that hasn't gone away. So the answer really is just to build on what Tony said. Ask your customer. See with them what they are most comfortable with, what they wish to see in terms of your representation on the scale of in person or online, and go along with that. Conform yourself, become more flexible, and basically answer your customer's need. But it's a very good conversation to be having with each of your customers.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked about the importance of video And I know earlier on, many clients were, you'd have a virtual meeting and they wouldn't be turning on their cameras, for example. We're not seeing that very much anymore. That it really is, it's a virtual face-to-face versus a live face-to-face. So the face-to-face part is definitely still there. So, high value, really.
Thank you, Tony and Amato. That's it for now.
Okay, Amato, so sorry, I'll flip it to you now.
Thank you, Tony. Good job. So Tony has been basically outlining for us all of the changes, all of the ways that the business world has changed because of the pandemic. And in fact, this is more than tweaks. These are more than changes. When you look at what's been happening in the business world has really gone through a dramatic paradigm shift. It's not just tweaks. And if you as a leader, or as a rep for that matter, you're feeling a little disoriented, you're feeling a little misaligned, what should I be doing? Are we doing the best that we can? What are we being asked to do? Are we being responsive? If you're not sure and feeling a little misaligned with all that, it's absolutely normal. I'm here to tell you, you are normal. It's absolutely normal to feel that way. And what we suggest, based on our experience, is a simple conversation. You need to have a very simple sales conversation with someone in the know, with someone who's got experience and perspective outside of your company. And quite frankly, with every conversation, the most productive conversation is when both parties have thought about what they're going to talk about. So our advice to you is be prepared. If you're going to have this sales conversation, be prepared to engage in this, discovery type discussion by having thought about the critical elements of your own sales operation. That's when it's most beneficial. And as I said, we are proposing this very casual, almost fireside chat sales conversation about your operation. And this is the way that actually you can get to the bottom of things and realize what it is that needs to be done, if anything, to align your operation with the new business world and the new paradigm. So to help you guide through that, we basically have a three-step process, right? The first thing you need to do in a global space is evolve your sales thinking. The way you think of sales or thought of sales before could be very, very different thing now. Second, map out your sales talent. See who it is that you have to deal with. Are they in the right position? Do they have the right dispositions? Or if you're a rep, do you have what it takes? And do you have the right openness and propensities to learn what needs to be learned? And third, if you're a leader, refocus your leadership. The way you used to support a sales force in the old world versus now will also have to dramatically shift. Okay? So let's look at the first one, the evolution of your sales thinking. So the first step of the journey is really to rethink how you think about sales. And this applies no matter how much or how little experience you have. This is not about how much background you have in sales, how experienced you are. And this is important, especially because of the amount of change that has taken place in the marketplace. So think about this. More than 50% of organizations say that the way work gets done by their sales team has materially changed in the last 6 months, 50%. Yet less than 20% have actually changed their requirements of what success looks like in a job. This in and of itself is very disorienting for your field. As an example, there's 4 typical fundamental questions that enable the start of a good sales conversation. And these are, first of all, how do I stay ahead of constantly changing customer needs? How do I enable a selling process, very important, that drives sales? How do I keep a remote or a hybrid kind of sales force engaged and productive? And how do I pivot a sales culture that is focused on value and focused on really what my customers want? Based on our experience, these are the 4 most common typical questions that start off in a sales leader's mind when we begin exploring with a sales conversation. You may have your own. Your worries or concerns, challenges at first may be more driven by sales turnover, by hiring the right people. Whatever they are, they need to be expressed upfront. Your key elements, your key challenges need to be expressed upfront. Now, evolve your sales thinking. We are proposing 5 easy steps here to evolve your sales thinking. And in fact, they are important and they don't have to necessarily be done, chronologically, but they are important with respect to guiding your thinking and how chronologically we can make good use of the time of this conversation. So evolve your thinking along the lines of rediscover your customer. Once you've rediscovered your customer, you really do need to refocus your sales force to the new world, to the new target. You even have to reimagine your offer. And I know this sounds very challenging for many and saying, listen, we are who we are, our product is what it is. How do I reimagine my offer? It's the way that you position your product and your service that really needs to be looked at again. And we'll cover that. Reset your sales approach. If you take full consciousness that in fact the market has changed, your customers are asking for different things, you've therefore reimagined or changed your offer, you also have to change the way you go to market and your entire sales approach. And 5th, re-enable your sales team. If you've changed the way you go to market, you also have to re-enable your sales team and make sure you are supporting them along the lines of the new skills and new talents that need to be deployed now in this new world. Okay. Rediscovering your customer really means, throw out the old rule book. Pre-COVID customers will tend to, act along predictive models. Nothing is predictive anymore. Really, everything is instinctive. And you have to match that by creating what we call a new situational awareness. In other words, your sales team have to be more in tune with what their customers not only need today, but may need down the line. Be very customer specific in your insights and offer insights, offer nuggets of information to your customers that will want them and drive them to be more loyal to you. Very important if you're in a sales leadership position, that you lead from the front, or at least instruct your sales managers to lead from the front and have the visibility and have them motivated to engage in seller activity. Provide them with the tools to coach and support your sales reps. And as a leader, you yourself need to be fast, flexible, and use every opportunity to listen to your people, because that's where you will learn. Next, refocus the sales force. So really, this really means narrow your sales funnel in difficult times and in bumpy times, especially in an economic downturn. Quantity must shift over to quality. Refocus your efforts where you believe are your best opportunities, and put your sales talent where your money is. Make sure you've got your best people focused in on your best opportunities. That is not to say that everything else takes the wayside and you ignore them, but you really do have to focus your top sales talent to maximize your best opportunities. And remember, in the old world, and this is really to enable your sales force to forge virtual relationships, not just have a digital presence, right? Pinpoint the opportunities in the sales funnel and make sure that you understand what blend of digital versus virtual versus in-person interactions they prefer. Just like the question we handled before, what's their personal preference along the lines of what blend will you use to basically interface with them? And very, very important, up your sales coaching game. Your salespeople will need you now more than ever in this transition. And you yourself have to think digitally, have to think of virtual deal execution methods. You and your management need to become expert in coaching in this type of new environment and in this type of deals, okay? Number 3, reimagine your offer. So easier said than done, right? We are who we are, our product is what it is, but it behooves you to uncover new signals to demand. Do that continually. Scan the marketplace, tap into some what we call dark customer data, and take advantage really of the emerging customer data sources and even the predictive AI tools that will allow you to achieve optimal customer targeting and uncovering propensities to buy shifts. See which way the market is going. See what worries your clients. See what has taken over as their priorities, and make sure you align to that, because that's where you will find your opportunity. And refresh and provide what we call the unprovided. Again, easier said than done, but the new sales game has changed and will require a lot more thoughtfulness. See how it is that you can align to provide what is unprovided inside of your market and inside of your customers. Once you do that, tailor your offers. Everything is customized, everything is tailored. No one buys the off-the-shelf product or service anymore. And try to intervene early and make sure you have a retention strategy. As much as it is important to focus on the larger activities, it is equally important that you retain the customers that have already shown their loyalty to you, albeit by changing their offer and by listening to them and understanding what changes have taken place with them. But your customer retention strategy is a very important one, okay? Number 4, reset your sales approach. Once you've sort of reset the game as to basically what you are selling and how you go get the information you think, rethink your own position and value, because your customers have changed. Organizations really have to adopt the new position of how they value their product and their services, because whether you like it or not, your customers will. They are changing. They are looking to you in a different light. Cover the right bases in terms of streamlining your go-to-market offers. Make things and data easily accessible to your sales force. Don't make this painful. And by doing so, you will outmaneuver your competition, because as we saw earlier, even though many people, including your competition, realizes that there has been a major shift and a major change, very few of them are actually going through with this change. And it's very important to tailor your result and tailor your measurements. So your KPIs, your measurements, and the way you incentivize people also need a fresh new look. You cannot change the game and change the way your people go to market and keep the same measurements and KPIs and incentives for your people. All of that needs to be looked at and reimagined. And I realize it may sound a little overwhelming. This is such a massive change. You're asking for such massive fundamentals change, but don't get overwhelmed with that. Really approach this one item at a time. And in our 5-step approach, really take it chronologically and change it. Not everything has to be changed overnight, but your mindset and your plan to start changing needs to be started as soon as possible. Number 5, once you've done all that and changed up the product and how you read your customers, you need to re-enable your sales team. Remember, there's only one throughput. There's not many in sales and marketing. So you need to designate your marketing and sales and align them on the same platform. There's one truth. There's one message your company goes to market with. And that has to be consistent all the way through. Equip your sales team with easy access to that information. Equip them with things like, technology permits now easy dashboards Provide them with dashboards that break down the market, break down territory levels, empower them with information. Don't keep the information for yourself. The information is power in this new world. Remember, the old world, what made a sales rep successful was a very, very high EQ. They were gifted at creating relationships. That is not to say that is all gone away, but right now it's more important for them to also have a very high IQ, for them to be able to interpret the data they are getting into offerings for their customers. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things because you feel like you got to go to a digital marketplace. And then finally, coach and govern. And we said this before, your people need your support. Your sales force now, in light of all this change and in light of everything you're asking them to do and the world is asking them to do, needs your support. Coaching is not managing. Coaching is really paying attention to the individual and making sure that he or she gets the support that they need, that they situationally need for them to become strategically and situationally relevant and important to their client. Your client will buy from you if you make yourself relevant and important. So that's the evolution of sales thinking in a nutshell, and the 5 steps that sort of make that up. The second one was map out your sales talent. So if you look at a sports analogy here, the first step of evolving your sales thinking is understanding what game are we playing and what the rules are. The second step of mapping out your sales talent is now you look and say, well, who have I got on the bench? Now that I understand what new game I'm playing and what the rules are, who have I got to play this game with, which I need to win? And then the third one, which we'll look at later, is now how do you coach accordingly? But when you look at mapping out the sales talent, there's a couple of ways that we can do that, obviously. I think you're all familiar with some of the previous tools, which are like a 9-box grid, which allow you to evaluate evaluate your people along the lines of skills, competencies, behavior, and motivation. But there's a couple of ways to do that. So the old way for your reps to ask, so what's keeping you up at night? That doesn't work anymore. I'm sure you're not surprised when I say, please don't do that, because that only communicates to your customer that you haven't done your homework. If you've got to ask your customer what keeps them up at night, you really haven't done their homework, and you're showing disrespect by asking a very generic question. So your reps need to come armed with their customer with information. We call those insights. Those are nuggets of information that'll make a difference to your customer. That shows to my customer the respect that I've done the research that I needed to do, because I'm coming to them to something that's extremely strategically relevant to them. So the seller of the future also has, a lot of the older profiles. And I said before, it used to be so important for the rep to be able to have high EQ to build relationships. That's still important, but it's also high IQ now to be able for them to analyze and deliver the data very rapidly so that they're being productive and they're being strategically relevant to the customer. Digital selling goes far beyond, just having a Zoom login, and it's underpinned by technology under 3 rough areas. First of all, customer interactions. So successful sales organizations build customer relationships through a spectrum, a mix of digital channels, online video conferencing, social networks, even chatbots. The larger and more complex a customer, the more channels they will more likely need to be engaged with. So be aware of that. Secondly, the sales process. So mature digital selling organizations deploy enablement technology that really shares the right content with their sellers at the right time and allows their sellers to deliver unique perspective to their buyers. Not just important to deliver a whole bunch of data to your sellers, but deliver it on time, when they're needed, and pertinent to their assignment. Third, there's agility. There's agile learning, means really digitally, like sales organizations that are digitally enabled, which is what we're explaining here today, deliver learning at the precise moment their people need it, but their customers need it as well. And there's different ways to disseminate pertinent information, but the timing and the delivery of that information is just as important as the information itself. So remember, timeliness, quality of the information, quality of the data that you're delivering to both your salespeople and to your clients. The other way to measure your people is really, to combine an internal assessment and evaluation process, just like a 9-box grid. But we strongly suggest that you use a science-based assessment tool and analysis, because the internal assessments will sort of result in certain biases and basically point you the hero or bum effect, whereas a scientific assessment will complement your internal assessments, but they will cover the important aspects of sales success. We cannot stress enough that basically the 3 critical elements that determine sales success in a professional sales, in a sales professional, are skills and competencies. And this is really the basic sales skills. This is the what tasks are being performed. Sales behavior, this looks at the how are these tasks being performed. And last but not least, most importantly, the sales DNA, this looks at the why these tasks are being performed and why they are being successful. So remember, skills and competencies is the what, sales behaviors is the how, sales DNA is the why. Sales DNA is also the barriers or the baggage that we all bring to any job that we do. Very, very important that we understand what psychological barriers we have with certain behaviors that may be keeping us from being the absolute very best sales professional that we can be. Once you've done that, and in fact, you can see here some of the more common tools. So many of the science-based assessment will provide you what you see on the right hand of your screen, a dashboard, which covers a multitude of very, very important skills and behaviors and sales DNA to be successful. It is a much more objective analysis, not painful, just objective analysis of how a particular salesperson stack ranks against the industry, against your competitors, and against the ideal of being the best that that person can be. To the left, you see the more conventional spreadsheet or 9-box grid, which is still important, but allows you on a superficial level to map people out according to what you believe their skills and behaviors are. The professional way, the scientific way, is still the very, very best that you can do for your people. Step number 3 in the journey is really, now that you've figured out what the game is, figured out who you have on your bench, what is your sales talent. Now you have to figure out what you as a leader need to do. Once you've figured out everything else, you have to now establish what you as a sales leader or as a sales manager can coach, not just manage, coach, support, and inspire your people to enable them to win the game. Just like a good sports coach will stand behind the bench and basically provide directions and advice to get the best of their people, the best of their team. This is a very, very important thing. And again, we have a little bit of a map to sort of guide you, because to just say, go ahead and now be an inspirational coach to your people could be a little bit of an overwhelming task. So we're going to provide you with a little bit of a map. So how do I become a good inspirational leader coach in this new area? 1, be process-driven and analytical. Remember, sales leaders need insight and clear data to see what strategies are working and which ones aren't. Make sure you've got the right analytical data at your disposal. 2, your sales team's goals need to be aligned, and this is what we mean by be strategic and innovative. That whatever your sales team is doing, your important task as a leader is make sure that whatever it is that they're doing is aligned with your company's strategy and your growth strategy, because it's very easy to become misaligned, especially when the whole ground is shifting as this paradigm shift seems to be doing. 3, be a good listener. There is nothing like listening to your people and listening to your clients to know what's going on. And I know I'm stating the obvious, but it's very, very important that you not only make that as part of your leadership traits, but also establish certain forms and certain processes by which you regularly listen to what's going on in the field. Very important. 4, in light of everything that's going on, it's very easy to sort of lose one's compass. Remember that as a leader, you have to be consistent, you have to be fair, you have to be responsive. So know yourself and have a strategy for your decision making. 5, be an effective delegator. Good leaders know who can do certain tasks better than them, or at least as good as them. Good leaders don't do all the work themselves, because you will easily become overwhelmed if you do that. So know how to and who to delegate. 6, the sales landscape is very difficult. It's very difficult to manage. So you need to be organized and resourceful, because that's how you best support your people. 7, along with being organized and resourceful, remember, you must be a good motivator. It is very, very easy in light of all these changes to become demotivator and lose one's compass, if you will. Part of what your job is as a leader to motivate is to make sure that you keep your people grounded. And 8, good leaders are always good coaches. Coaching is more about developing each member of your team to take on increased levels of responsibility and motivation. And 9, finally, is have an eye out for sales talent. Sales talent is all around you. It doesn't just pop up when you decide to recruit. Sales talent is everywhere around you, in your neighbors, in your family, in your environment, in your company. Always know what your best people do, what their secret to success is, and keep an eye out for that all the time. So, quick 2 nuggets at the end of this. Basically, if you were to retain 2 very important things for this entire presentation and this entire dialogue we just had with you, and saying, here's how you prepare to have a sales conversation. 1, your customers' needs and their expectations have changed, to say the least. Your sales approach, the way how you think about sales and the way you execute sales needs to be realigned accordingly. 2, a sales conversation, which is really the beginning of exploring what can be done, will help you focus on the important things. And it will help you reprioritize the key elements to achieve peak performance. All you can hope for at the end of the day is to provide the best support of your team, and your team to provide the best performance possible, given the marketplace and given who they are as individuals. So make the best of a changing world, and it starts with talking about your team and having a sales conversation with people that have a perspective outside of your company. That's my portion. We'll take questions, I guess.
Sure thing. Thank you so much for that, Amato. We do have a few questions for you. Let me just get to Anston's here. So he's asking, how best to have a seller engage virtually or by phone with a client versus emailing back and forth?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'll give you the answer no one likes to hear. It depends. It's very situational. One of the things we said in our presentation is it takes for you to have a certain knowledge of your customer before you even approach them. Quite frankly, I would say it takes a lot. You need to know a lot about your customer even before you approach them. Because if you approach your customer, whether it be virtually or in person or by email or whatever it is, and you do it in a generic way, customers will turn off. Customers don't respond, especially prospects, don't respond to a generic approach. So if you want to approach me, gain my attention because you've got something valuable to sell me, demonstrate to me that you know something about what I care about and what my company does. Now you've got my attention. Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I know there's lots of books out there that tell you how to best engage somebody by email, how to best engage somebody by phone, how to best engage, and, you know, and they go through all these techniques that you can use. The reality is, like Amado said, you know, yes, maybe, but like, what is it that's going to be most effective for how that customer wants to work with you? And if it's email, that's great. You know, if it's a Zoom call or whatever call, that's great. But you have to work with that. What you want to try and avoid, though, you know, unfortunately, things like email and telephone, you end up with a lot of back and forth, which isn't productive either for the client or for yourself as a sales professional. But, you know, again, you work with what's most important for them, and if you know the client, you'll know what's important for them and how they operate.
And if you're in the type of business where the email back and forth is almost inevitable, here's a good trick. Establish with your customer and saying, listen, I promise that I will not send you emails uselessly. In return, can you promise that you will respond to my emails within 24 hours? So I promise that I will make everything relevant. I will not email you uselessly, but in return, I'd like for you to promise that you will get back to me within 24 hours, and I will do the same, by the way. But that's a good contract to sort of negotiate with your customer.
I love that, Amado. No useless emails. That's perfect. Just a reminder to anybody who would like to ask any questions or make any comments, please feel free to enter your question into the question function of your dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen there. Our next question here is about sales conversations. How do you best prepare for a sales conversation?
Well, we just took you through a little bit of a plan and a strategy. It's like everything else. And as we said, if you go into a conversation about any topic, the best way to make the best use of the time is to be prepared to have that conversation, right? Both parties need to be prepared. But if I'm going to have a sales conversation with someone who can potentially benefit and guide me to what needs to be done, I need to have my concerns and my challenges prepared so that I can line them up and speak about them in an intelligent and coordinated way. If I go into any kind of conversation, including a sales conversation, it's kind of you know, blind, then chances are we're not going to get grounded on what needs to be talked about for quite a while, and then I'm wasting an opportunity. So really look at what we presented in terms of think about how you start to rethink about the marketplace, what you know about the changes, what you see in terms of potential red flags within your sales force. Are you having more than anticipated turnover? Are you having some issues around motivation? Are you getting signals that your sales team is less motivated than it should be? Are you getting signals through your comp plan that the comp plan isn't driving the kind of behavior you'd like? Did you have a misalignment with your board or with your strategy plan vis-a-vis what your people are doing? So there's different indices, there's different kind of hints that you need to sort of conceptualize and understand first, and then go into a sales conversation and ask about those things specifically. So it's preparation.
Thank you, Tony. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Tony?
No, I think that's exactly right. Like that preparation is key. You have to have, I think Amado described it as insights into the client. And that's what's going to enable the conversation. Like the notion of straight out cold calling. Hi, I'm Tony from JTX, and I'm here to help you improve your sales force. That doesn't work because I don't know how am I going to do that. I don't know anything about what's going on in your company, so I'm just fishing. So fishing expeditions seem to be less effective in today's world, especially when buyers are able to do a lot of research, a lot more research than they ever did before, using tools that are available to them. So they've got a lot of information. So you can't just go in blind. Like you have to have a conversation. You have to be equally well prepared.
Good. And just for clarity purpose, you just got a two-faceted answer, right? So I interpreted your question as a sales conversation with someone in the know about how to improve performance of your sales team. And Tony provided you an answer around a sales conversation with a potential client. And both of these things, and in both of these things, preparation is absolutely important, right?
Thank you. Our next question here is, as a sales leader, how do I know if there's a sales struggle to address? Amato, I think you touched on that just in the previous question. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think it really is look for red flags, look for indications that may indicate a certain challenge, turnover, lack of motivation, obviously performance, not hitting plan. More importantly than not hitting plan, not hitting forecast. Why are your people constantly missing on delivering what they say they will? What is happening in the marketplace? Why are you getting a number that is not realistic, or maybe you're getting a realistic number, but then the execution fails? So these are all very, very important indications that something is awry. And even though you cannot possibly know what, or you cannot possibly know what the remedy is, it behooves you as a leader to have that conversation with someone, and I like to say someone in the know, but somebody like us who sort of has a perspective outside of your company. We do a lot of these conversations, so we are in a better position to at least provide you with some counsel. And then it's up to you to decide as to whether you want to do anything with that, but at least have that conversation with us so that we can demonstrate to you some possibilities of ways to address them. But it's good first and foremost to talk about it, to vehicle that thought and that challenge outside based on the fact that you're seeing some indications that may be worrisome. Make sense? Sounds easy.
Thank you so much.
I know it's not. I know it's,
We do
it's almost like going to a shrink, but less painful.
Thanks, Amato. Tony, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think he's covered it well. Yeah.
We've got some commentary saying thank you so much for a great perspective on refocusing sales and the new normal, which is fantastic. I think this is going to be our last question for today, but Amato had kindly put the info@jtx.ca email address on the screen previous. So we've got, this is going to be our last one, but with the changing workforce expectations for work-life balance, how does a leader best adapt to employee work ethic? I think is a really good question.
To employee work ethic, was that what you said?
That's right, Tony.
Yeah, I'll my perspective just for a quick second here. The thing to be careful of is that balance goes away, especially when you have more activities going on virtually and people are doing more work from home and so on. And there is a risk that people will lose the balance perspective, that they'll be spending far more time, which is unhealthy, right? I mean, you have to have the proper balance to be able to have good perspectives. If you get too immersed for long periods of time, it becomes difficult to kind of see the forest for the trees. So it's important that you, as a manager, that you encourage your people to to keep that balance, that perspective, and that you have to make sure that they're giving themselves sufficient time to do other things than just working, time with their families, time, that breather away from work will allow them to have a different view of the work activities that they're undertaking when they undertake them, as opposed to just being constantly immersed.
And as a leader, always remember this very simple truth. The more comfortable and confident I am in my job, the quicker and more comfortably I can do it. That is, so if one is stressed about their job, as one is struggling with the work-life balance, it probably points to a fact that they're not totally comfortable or feel totally confident about executing their job. Therefore, they're trying to to resolve the problem by putting in more hours, which is the wrong thing to do. Confident people are able to perform their tasks and reach their goals within the allotted time, right? And it's not just an ideal principle. It is really a true business principle, and every leader should know.
I love that, Amato. Thank you. As we bring today's webinar to a close, is there anything else that you wanted to add, Tony and Amato?
Just thank you to all of you that have hung in there. It was fun to share this with you. I wish we could have seen you all, but I know you're out there. And thank you again for hanging in there. And hopefully this will have provided you a little bit more grounding and background vis-a-vis all this change. So
yes, thank you to everyone, and thank you to CPSA and you, Ruplan, for making this thing work so efficiently today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tony and Amato. And on behalf of CPSA, I want to thank JTX for such valuable content today. If you'd like to attend any of our other upcoming webinars and virtual events, please feel free to head on over to cpsa.com/event, and you'll find all of our upcoming events listed there. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day, Amato and Tony.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
See you later. Bye now.
Thanks.